Who would tell us of the things of old, of the things of old, and of the things that have been, of Dobrynya, the son of Nikita, of the brave Bogatyri, Dobrynya Nikitich, and of his quarrel with Alyosha, the son of a priest, of Alyosha Popovich, of Alyosha the Bogatyri. Dobrynya went to royal Kyivan, where courteous Prince Volodymyr Bright Sun, Volodymyr Red Sun, had made an honorable feast to his princes, to his nobles, to his Bogatyri, his heroes, to the warrior maids, the Polinici. The long day drew towards evening, the honorable feast waxed merry, the fair sun sank to the west, and the feast grew even merrier, and the heroes began to boast of many things, the wise man of his father and mother, the foolish of his young wife. Volodymyr the prince grew warm as he paced the banquet hall, and he went forth upon the fair round porch to gaze off on the open plain. Far, afar, over the open plain the clear falcon flew not, nor fled the small white hare, the little ermine galloped not. But from the steppes a bold and goodly youth emerged. Little Ilya, the glorious of Murom, rode straight to Prince Volodymyr's court and entered the banquet hall. He crossed himself and did reverence as enjoined to all four sides, and seated himself at the oaken board in the great corner of honor, on the bench of precious fish's teeth. Already had the guests tasted bread and salt, and were now carving the white swan, when Volodymyr came into the hall, stroked his black curls, and spoke. Ho, ye princes, nobles, strong and mighty, heroes all, and all ye bold warrior maids, stand for the Christian faith, for me, Prince Volodymyr, and for my Princess Apraxia, for widows, orphans, and unhappy women. Who shall we send to defend the mighty barrier and wage battle with the discourteous knight? For he hath written me a challenge to single combat, and is now flying hither in the form of a raven. Who shall we send to fight that raven, and to collect tribute long due us? All those feasting held their peace, each hiding behind some lesser man. Then glorious Ilya of Murom, Ilya Muromets, stepped forward and bowed low. Foolish are ye, Russian heroes, to hold your peace thus, uttering no word. Not long is it, brother, since I have returned from the open plain. Thither flew the discourteous knight in form of a black raven, but would not show himself to my eyes, else I would have slain that dog with my stout bow. But if I go, there will be none to defend the barrier. Let us therefore send young Dobrynya Nikitich. Then Dobrynya drained a cup of green wine, which Prince Volodymyr himself brought him, but tarried not long at the feast, going thence in uncheerful mood. When he came to his mother, he wept bitterly. Fair my lady mother, he lamented, why didst thou bear me in such an hour, without genius, strength, great beauty, her tall stature, great wealth, or curling hair? Rather thou should, fair and honorable widow, should have cast me like a white pebble into the black Turkish sea. Then his mother made answer, gladly would I have borne thee with the genius and fortune of Ilya of Murom, the strength of hero, the mincing gait of Chirilo Plenkovich, the wealth of Sadko, the daring of Alyosha Popovich, the fame of Volha Uslevich. But to Dobrynya God gave courtesy alone, and other gifts were not bestowed upon thee. He said to her, fair and good, my mother, thy youth hath neither good steed nor heroic trappings. Nikita's mother bid him go to the stables. There you will find, in the lowest level, a steed worthy of thee. And there you will also find heroic trappings. Dobrynya inquired no further. He beheld a goodly steed in the lowest chamber, and fell down before his right forefoot. Thou good heroic steed, he cried, serve Dobrynya on his heroic quests. He then unchained and loosened the horse and saddled him, girding him with the silk of Samarkand. After that, he arrayed himself in shoes of green morocco. His cap was gilded, not for youthful grace, but for heroic might. Next he put on a coat of mail, and set his foot to stirrup of Damascene steel, Give me thy leave to ride upon this heroic quest. So his mother, his good mother, laid the cross of blessing on him and led to his left stirrup his beloved wife, young Nastasia Mikulichna. Young Nastasia, as she stood by his stirrup, began to ask of him, "Hi, my dearest Dobrynya Nikitich, when may I expect thee from the open field? Tell me when I may await thee from yonder lands." "I will tell thee, fair Nastasia, 3 years shall pass as you wait for Dobrynya. And if I am not here, then wait yet another 3. And when the space of 6 years have passed, and I am not returned from the open field, wait for me 6 more. And if after 12 years I have not come, then I shall not be among the living. Then live a widow or marry at thy pleasure. Choose a prince, a noble, or a mighty Russian hero. But wed not my brother-in-arms, Alyosha Popovich, that scoffer at women. For a brother-in-arms can be worse than an own brother. Therefore marry a robber or a brigand, if thou wishes, but not Alyosha, the scorner of maidens, for he loveth to mock at women, young widows, and fair maids." They saw the good youth as he mounted. They saw him not as he rode. From the court he departed, not by the gates. He traversed the plain, not by the highway. His steed's first leap was over the city walls. The second compassed 3 versts, and of the third leap no trace could be found. Year followed year as the falcon flieth. 3 years Nastasia waited, and Dobrynya came not. But Alyosha Popovich was cunning. He rode forth into the open plain, and after that turned back and came to Nastasia. "Lo, Nastasia Mikulichna," quoth he, "as I roamed the open plain but yesterday, I saw Dobrynushka dead. He lieth with his head in a willow bush, his nimble feet amid the plumed grass tall. In his yellow curls small woodbirds have woven their nests. Polish ravens have plucked out his clear eyes. Silken grass springeth through his white breast, and amid it azure flowerlets blossom. His weapons are scattered, his good steed roameth the steppe, and his wife still liveth as a widow. Therefore, lady, wed now with me." "Nay, Alyosha Popovich," Nastasia answered, "thou hast not been on the open steppe. Thou hast but wandered with the dogs in the outskirts of the town." Day followed day as the rain doth fall. Week grew upon week as groweth the grass, and like the river, year flowed after year. 6 full years passed. Alyosha came again to the palace of white stone, did reverence, and crossed himself as enjoined, seated himself upon the wall bench, and began to woo young Nastasia for his bride. "Now marry me, a goodly youth, Nastasia. Dobrynya will never more return from the open plain." "I bold Alyosha Popovich, I have kept a man's oath, and now I will keep a woman's. If in 12 years Dobrynya return not, then I shall be free to live as a widow or to wed. But thee, Alyosha, I may never wed." Alyosha was not merry, and time passed on until the full term of years was accomplished. Again he came to woo, and this time with fair son Prince Volodymyr. "Marry me." "I will not marry thee," she answered. The fair son Prince Volodymyr spoke. "Young Nastasia Mikulichna, if thou wed not bold Alyosha Popovich, I will shut thee up in a nunnery. I will give thee in marriage to Murza the Tatar in the Lithuanian land. I will make thee my cowherd." But she still made answer, "Nay, I will not wed bold Alyosha." Then they said, "If thou wilt not do this freely, we will take thee by force." Thereupon they took her by her white hands, led her to the cathedral, and betrothed her to bold Alyosha. After that, fair son Volodymyr took their hands and led them to his palace, where he made for Alyosha a great banquet, an honorable feast, and bade to it many of all degrees. And the honorable widow, the mother of Nikita Dobrynya wailed, "Now hath my bright moon set also." Now Dobrynya had gone to the Golden Horde and had fought for royal Kyiv and his native land all those years, wandering through many countries. When Nastasia was being wed to Alyosha, he was far away upon the open steppe beyond the glorious blue sea. As the good youth sat in his tent, a dove and his mate flew to him, perched upon a damp oak, and began to coo, "There is feasting today in Kyiv town, for Dobrynya's young wife is wedded to Alyosha Popovich." When Dobrynya heard that, he sprang to his nimble feet. Then he saddled his good steed with haste, fell down before his right forefoot, and besought him, "I, my good steed, fly alone. Thou hast borne me hither for many years. Now bear me home in 3 hours to royal Kyiv town." Then he mounted his good steed, and quickly, very, very quickly, with speed, rode Dobrynya from beyond the blue sea. Good fly alone left the earth. Higher than the standing wood he soared, yet lower than the flying clouds. He leaped the lakes and rivers, dashed through the dusky forest, galloped round the dark blue sea. Afar in the open steppe, 'twas not the first light snow descending, nor a white hare coursing fleet, nor snowy partridge fluttering, but a bold and goodly youth swift riding. Straight to Kyiv town he rode, not through the gates, but over the city walls. Past the angled towers he entered, and took his way to the honorable widow's dwelling. He asked no leave of the porters at the gate, nor of the keepers at the doors. Thrusting them aside, he broke open the portals, and entered unbidden, unannounced, and boldly the honorable widow's dwelling. "Hail, honorable widow Ephemia Alexandrevna," he said, when he had crossed himself and done reverence as was the usage. The porters and doorkeepers entering made complaint of the bold youth, and the widow said, "Why, bold and goodly youth, why hast thou entered the orphan dwelling unannounced? Were my dear child living, young Dobrynya Nikitich, he would have cut off thy turbulent head for thy unmannerly ways. Were he but alive, all the drunken boors would not come to jeer at this unprotected dwelling. But 12 years have passed since my fair red sun set forever." "Mournest thou not in vain," said Dobrynya, "but yesterday I parted with Dobrynya, and not a week hath passed since we exchanged crosses. He went to Tsargrad, and I came to Kyiv. He bade me, his own brother, to inquire after his wife Nastasia. Where is she?" "Go forth, thou pothouse boor, and mock not a poor old woman. Though I already taught her with extreme old age, yet will I myself put thee out by force." "Ay, my fair lady mother," answered young Dobrynya, "knowest not thou thy beloved son, Dobrynya Nikitich?" Young Dobrynya had shoes of Morocco upon his feet, but thine are torn and patched. Thou sot! Dobrynya's face was white and red. Thine is dark and dust begrimed. His eyes were clear as the sea falcons, but thine are troubled. My garments have become worn with these 12 years past, my fair lady mother. My white face the fierce heats have discolored. If indeed be young Nikita my son, thou hast a birthmark upon thy right breast." Then Dobrynya showed her the mark. His mother heeded not her age, but ran and caught him by his white hands and kissed his sugar mouth, calling him her beloved son. "Now where is my young wife?" he asked. "The clear falcon hath flown into my court, but the white swan hath fluttered forth from it," his mother answered, and told him all Alyosha's treachery, and how it was now the 3rd day of the wedding feast. Quickly Dobrynya arrayed himself as a skoromoch, a minstrel, and took his guzli, and took his way to the palace of white stone, where the wedding guests were making merry. When he was come to the banquet hall, he crossed himself and did reverence to all sides, and in particular to the prince and princess, and to young Nastasia Mikulichna. "Fair son, prince of royal Kyiv," he said, "is there not a little place and small for the little jester where he may play upon his harp?" Ah, little minstrel, said Prince Volodymyr, all the places are filled, but there is yet a small place upon the earthen oven, the minstrel's place. Dobrynya was agile of foot. Lightly he sprang upon the oven and tuned his harp. One string he tuned to Kyiv, one to Tsargrad, and the third to Jerusalem. And the tones he sang were from over the sea, but the theme was Dobrynya's adventures and the men of Kyiv town. "Oh, little minstrel," said the prince, "thy place is not upon the oven. Come hither. 3 places are thine to choose. The first is beside me, the second over against me, the third is where thou wilt." Then Dobrynya seated himself opposite bold Alyosha and the young Princess Nastasia, and said to Volodymyr, "Fair son, grant me to pour out a cup of green wine in measure a bucket and a half, and bear it to whom I will." "Thy song was great," said Prince Volodymyr, "and the solace thereof was sweet. Pour the green wine without measure, take golden treasure without stint." So Dobrynya poured a great cup of wine, dropped therein his marriage ring, and gave it to Nastasia. "Drink to the bottom, young Princess Nastasia, and thou shalt see good. And if thou drink not to the bottom, thou shalt not see good." Then Nastasia took the cup in one hand and drained it at a draught, and lo, she beheld the ring with which she had wedded Dobrynya. "Fair son Prince Volodymyr," she said, "not he that sitteth beside me is my husband, but he that sitteth over against me, that little minstrel, young Dobrynya Nikitich." Thereupon she rose to her nimble feet, put her white hands upon the oaken board, and vaulted over, fell upon Dobrynya's white breast, and kissed his sugar mouth. But Dobrynya said to Prince Volodymyr, "I do marvel that he should woo the wife of a living husband for another man, and should compel her to wed when she was not willing. And yet more do I marvel at my brother in arms, Alyosha Popovich, when he had seen me upon the open steppe, and now the younger brother hath taken the wife of the elder brother." Then he seized Alyosha by the yellow curls, dragged him over the oaken table, hurled him upon the brick floor, and began to beat him with his cudgel. And when he was done, he flung Alyosha under the wall bench. Said he, "Any man may marry, saith the proverb, but not with every man doth it go well." Then the guests were all terrified and fled. And Dobrynya took his young wife by her white hands, and led her to his palace of white stone. Thenceforward he rode upon no quest, but dwelt in Kyiv town. But Alyosha Popovich went with shame and grief to a strange and distant land. And Dobrynya's fame and the fame of that feast have been sung since that very day, and shall be sung about forevermore. It was at the feast I heard this tale, there it was I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.